I can't believe you trust her over me, Eleanor Bennet whispered under her breath as she stood frozen in the kitchen doorway, the morning sunlight spilling across the granite countertops and warming the faint scent of brewed coffee lingering in the air. The plates neatly stacked from last night's dinner still gleaming in the sink. Michael Bennet's voice carried from the living room, casual and unaware. Mom, I think Vanessa has a point about the renovations. And Eleanor's hands tightened around the edge of the counter, knuckles whitening, her eyes tracing the sunlight on the polished wood floor, noticing how every little detail of the house she and Michael had maintained together over decades suddenly felt alien, as if the walls themselves were whispering betrayal. She remembered the letters she had written months ago, outlining her hopes for family gatherings, the little surprises she had planned, and the meticulous care she took preparing the house for holidays, the scent of vanilla from the baking she had done just yesterday lingering faintly. And yet here she was, sidelined by the very people she loved. She stepped forward, moving slowly so as not to alert them, watching Vanessa enter the room with a bright smile that did not reach her calculating eyes. Eleanor noted the subtle gestures, the way Vanessa adjusted her pearl necklace, the way her gaze flicked to Michael, seeking affirmation. Eleanor felt the chill of realization run through her. This was no small disagreement, no fleeting misunderstanding. This was deliberate. She recalled every time she had been to pick up after Michael, every time she had offered a helping hand when Vanessa moved in, the quiet moments where she had expected gratitude but received only casual acknowledgement, the subtle ways in which her presence had been minimized over time. Eleanor's heart remained steady despite the shock. The anger she had felt months ago had been replaced by a cold, calculating calm. She set down her tea, the cup's warmth grounding her as she inhaled deeply, noticing the soft hum of the refrigerator, the gentle creak of the floorboards under her own feet. She remembered Michael as a boy, climbing onto her lap to share secrets and worries, the trust that had existed once now fractured. She observed the two of them across the room, their conversation light but laced with an undertone Eleanor could not ignore. The words she would have laughed off before now sounded pointed, each sentence a careful placement, designed to sway him, to isolate her. Eleanor's eyes scanned the room, the anniversary photos on the walls, the family mementos she had cherished. Suddenly heavy with the weight of duplicity, she moved toward the living room, careful to keep her expression neutral, as if she were unaware. And yet every step measured, every gesture controlled, a silent assertion of presence. She could hear the faint ticking of the wall clock, each second echoing the slow realization of the depth of manipulation at play. Eleanor's mind pieced together the patterns she had ignored before, the minor dismissals, the sly suggestions that now seemed orchestrated. She recognized Vanessa's influence, the way she had subtly rewritten the narrative, shifting Michael's attention, creating an alternate reality where Eleanor's voice was secondary. She took a deep breath, the light from the window catching the silver strands of her hair, her calm exterior belying the storm inside, the smell of fresh bread from the kitchen mingling with the floral scent of the window garden. Eleanor's thoughts sharpened, clarity piercing the haze of disbelief. She would not confront yet, but observe, document, and wait, understanding that power could be asserted quietly, without melodrama. The house felt different now, the air heavier, as if it too had absorbed the tension between mother and son. She allowed a small smile to ghost across her lips, not of joy but of resolve, a silent acknowledgement that she had noticed. She had seen the truth in the subtle cues and the shifting glances. She seated herself at the breakfast nook, her posture straight, hands folded, eyes unwavering on Michael and Vanessa, letting the normalcy of the moment mask her calculated awareness. The sunlight continued to drift across the countertops, Eleanor sipping her tea, silent, steady, a sentinel watching the dynamics of her own family unravel in the quiet chaos of the morning. The afternoon sun filtered through the blinds, casting long shadows across the living room where Eleanor Bennet sat quietly on the worn leather sofa, her hands resting lightly on her lap, fingers tracing the stitching as if it could anchor her thoughts. Michael Bennet and Vanessa moved around the kitchen and dining area, arranging plates and napkins with casual conversation that floated over Eleanor like a distant echo. She observed the precise movements, the slight tension in Vanessa's shoulders, The way Michael nodded attentively at her comments, Eleanor's mind replayed small incidents from the past weeks, subtle changes in their behavior, the gentle insistence on scheduling family events in ways that subtly excluded her. She noted the emails she had received but had brushed off at first, their tone almost benign, now revealing themselves as carefully worded nudges designed to steer her son's attention. Eleanor shifted slightly on the sofa, adjusting her posture to maintain calm, her breathing steady as she mentally catalogued each interaction, each slight, each unspoken word that had hinted at a narrative being rewritten without her consent. She recalled preparing breakfast that morning, the crisp smell of toast and brewed coffee mingling with the faint aroma of citrus from the fruit bowl, each step taken with care, each cup poured with precision, yet every gesture unnoticed. Eleanor felt a quiet sting at the invisibility of her presence. She glanced toward the mantel where photographs of family, vacations, holidays, and birthdays sat in neat frames, the images now seeming to mock her with reminders of times when trust had been implicit and respect unquestioned. A sigh escaped her lips, soft and barely audible, as she watched Vanessa lean slightly toward Michael, her smile polite but her intentions clear in the way her eyes darted and lingered. Eleanor's thoughts sharpened, realizing that patience was now a tool she must wield deliberately, not out of naivety but as a calculated means of observation. She noted the subtle interplay of words, the small corrections and affirmations Vanessa offered Michael, how he accepted them with an almost imperceptible deference. Eleanor held her expression neutral, letting the conversation carry on around her. The soft clinking of silverware, the hum of the refrigerator, and the faint tapping of the clock punctuating the quiet tension. She considered the options quietly, weighing when and how to reveal her awareness without alerting them prematurely. Each memory of past family gatherings where she had been overlooked, each gentle nudge she had given for unity, now reframed in her mind as lessons in vigilance. Eleanor's gaze moved to the window where the light had shifted, highlighting the dust motes drifting lazily in the warm air. She allowed herself a moment to absorb the scene, feeling the weight of realization settle without panic. The room, familiar and comforting in other times, now seemed a stage for subtle manipulation. Yet she maintained a stillness that contrasted sharply with the undercurrent of deceit. Eleanor picked up her teacup, the porcelain cool and smooth, and sipped deliberately, letting the warmth ground her as her thoughts continued to analyze each nuance. She noticed Michael's attention briefly waver as Vanessa mentioned a minor detail about their shared investments, a fleeting glance that spoke volumes to Eleanor about where his loyalties had quietly shifted. She kept her expression even, silently cataloging each signal, each micro-reaction, preparing for the moment when the understanding would crystallize. Eleanor's heart remained calm, her mind alert, the quiet observation itself a form of power. She traced the edge of the sofa with her fingertip, each subtle movement reinforcing her awareness, the afternoon light waning gradually as shadows deepened across the room. Eleanor leaned back, slightly, allowing herself a measured exhale, the stillness of her body a deliberate contrast to the tension she observed. Every subtle gesture, every glance and word, now filed meticulously in her memory. Eleanor's gaze returned to the mantel once more. The photographs of holidays past now reframed as silent witnesses. She allowed the soft ticking of the wall clock to pace her thoughts, each second measured, each breath steady. Eleanor prepared herself for the unfolding day, aware that patience and careful attention would reveal the full extent of the orchestration around her. Yet outwardly, she remained composed, poised, her presence quiet but unmistakable. The afternoon continued with its calm pretense. Eleanor observing, Eleanor calculating, Eleanor ready. The late afternoon sun filtered softly through the living room windows, illuminating the quiet tension that seemed to cling to every corner of the Bennett household. Eleanor sat in her favorite armchair, her hands folded neatly on her lap, fingers brushing the smooth fabric, her gaze fixed on the muted beige carpet where shadows from the curtains stretched long and thin. Michael and Vanessa moved about with practiced ease, exchanging quiet words and subtle glances that Eleanor noted with careful attention. She remembered the way Michael had once been attentive to her suggestions, the ease with which they had shared conversations over breakfast and during evening tea, and the contrast to this moment, where his focus lingered almost exclusively on Vanessa. his voice carrying a tone of agreement that seemed to affirm her presence over Eleanor's. Eleanor's mind replayed small details she had previously dismissed: the slightly altered schedule of family events, the way Vanessa had suggested changes to holiday plans, and the gentle ways in which Michael had acquiesced without consulting her. Eleanor allowed herself a slow, deliberate breath, letting the air settle through her lungs as she continued to observe, taking note of the way Vanessa's eyes shifted ever so slightly when she spoke, the subtle tilt of her head, the careful modulation of her tone. Eleanor catalogued these movements silently, each one a thread in a larger tapestry she was quietly unraveling. She thought back to mornings like this one in previous years, where laughter had filled the kitchen and breakfast had been shared with easy conversation, and she contrasted that warmth with the current air of polite distance and strategic interaction. Eleanor felt a quiet, simmering resolve build within her, not as anger but as clarity, the knowledge of intention and subtle manipulation sharpening her focus. She shifted slightly, resting her teacup on the small side table, noting the faint smell of brewed coffee mixed with the lingering scent of fresh flowers she had arranged earlier in the week, each detail grounding her while her mind worked to map out the unspoken dynamics playing out before her. She caught a flicker of doubt cross Michael's expression for the briefest moment as Vanessa mentioned a minor logistical point regarding their shared property, and Eleanor stored it away, a small sign of potential awareness in a sea of deference. She maintained a neutral expression, her posture composed, her eyes calm and unwavering. As the conversation moved from topic to topic, she watched the way Vanessa's hands occasionally brushed against the polished wood of the counter, the way she emphasized certain words with a subtle lift of her chin. Eleanor's attention absorbed everything, the sunlight shifting as it passed through the windows, marking the slow passage of time. She felt the weight of history in the house, the memories of shared holidays, past birthdays, and small family victories now juxtaposed with the current realization of her diminished influence. Eleanor's thoughts traced the narrative threads she had observed over weeks and months, connecting the small manipulations to a broader picture of strategy and control. And as she sipped her tea, the warmth of the cup grounding her, she felt the quiet power of observation, the ability to understand fully before acting. Eleanor's gaze returned to the photographs on the mantel, images of family events carefully documented, each one now a silent witness to the unfolding awareness. The air in the room was filled with the faint sounds of life, a refrigerator humming, soft footsteps on the floor, distant traffic. Yet within that ordinary hum, Eleanor detected the extraordinary subtleties that told the truth of intentions. She allowed herself a small, controlled exhale, a steady presence amidst the currents of manipulation, readying herself for the moments to come, fully aware, fully present, yet outwardly composed. Each gesture, each glance, catalogued, understood, and held in reserve. Eleanor's afternoon stretched quietly onward, the light fading gently, shadows deepening, and she remained poised, the calm center in a house where the undercurrent of allegiance and influence shifted subtly with every word exchanged. The late afternoon light softened further as Eleanor Bennett shifted slightly in her armchair, the warmth from the tea she had poured moments ago radiating through her palms, the room quiet except for the soft ticking of the wall clock and the distant hum of a passing car outside. She focused on the small details of her surroundings, the polished oak dining table reflecting streaks of sunlight, the delicate porcelain figurines on the mantel standing silently like observers of the unfolding tension. Vanessa and Michael moved through the kitchen and living area with deliberate coordination, their conversation calm on the surface yet underscored by subtle cues. Eleanor noted the slight tilt of Vanessa's head when she spoke, the careful way she positioned herself near Michael, the gentle emphasis on certain words that seemed designed to guide his thoughts without overt assertion. Eleanor's gaze traveled to the photographs lining the walls, images of vacations, family birthdays, and quiet evenings now tinged with the awareness of manipulation. She remembered the way Michael had once sought her counsel on household matters, the way he had deferred to her judgment, and contrasted it with this moment, when he nodded and smiled in agreement with Vanessa's suggestions almost automatically. Eleanor's breathing remained steady, each inhale deliberate, each exhale measured, the quiet rhythm grounding her as she catalogued every word, every gesture, every shift in attention. She considered the subtle choices Vanessa had made over the past weeks, the rearranging of family schedules, the gentle suggestions that seemed innocuous at first but now revealed a pattern of influence. Eleanor's mind traced these threads with precision, connecting the small incidents into a broader understanding of the orchestration unfolding before her. She sipped her tea, letting the warmth settle into her chest, her eyes never leaving the movements and interactions around her. The sunlight dimming gradually as the day moved toward evening, casting long shadows that stretched across the room and added weight to the atmosphere. Eleanor allowed herself a moment of reflection, remembering holidays past, moments of laughter and shared stories, the sense of family that had once been seamless, now fractured by subtle shifts in loyalty and attention. She noticed Michael's brief hesitation as Vanessa mentioned a minor detail regarding an upcoming event, a fleeting pause that revealed his awareness but also his reluctance to contradict her. Eleanor catalogued it silently, storing each cue for the careful observation she intended to maintain. The room remained calm on the surface, ordinary sounds punctuating the tension, yet Eleanor perceived the underlying currents of influence, the quiet power of suggestion, the way words and gestures were orchestrated to shape perception. She shifted slightly, adjusting her posture, maintaining a composed exterior while her mind worked meticulously, each detail filed away for future clarity. Eleanor's presence alone a quiet assertion, her attention unbroken, her mind mapping the dynamics of the room, aware that patience and careful observation could reveal more than confrontation. She allowed the last rays of sunlight to touch the room, noting the warmth and the shadows, the light, each element reinforcing her understanding of the delicate balance at play. Eleanor's calm demeanor contrasted with the careful navigation of interactions around her, the soft ticking of the clock marking each second as a subtle reminder of the passing day. She sipped the last of her tea, steady and deliberate, the warm liquid a small comfort amidst the quiet complexity of observation. Eleanor prepared herself mentally for the evening ahead, knowing that awareness, patience, and quiet strength would be her tools. She remained poised, the calm center in a house where intentions and alliances shifted with subtle precision. Each glance, each word, each gesture noted, understood, and retained as the day progressed toward evening. The sun was beginning its slow descent, casting a golden hue across the Bennett living room. Eleanor Bennett remained seated in her armchair, the warmth from the afternoon light mingling with the lingering aroma of tea and fresh flowers she had arranged earlier in the day. Her eyes moved deliberately across the room, taking in every subtle gesture, every glance exchanged between Michael and Vanessa. She noted the slight pause in Michael's voice when Vanessa suggested a new arrangement for the family schedules, the soft nod he gave her response. Eleanor catalogued it silently, a careful mental record of the sway and influence Vanessa held. Eleanor's mind drifted to the many breakfasts and family dinners she had prepared over the years, the laughter that once filled the air now replaced by a quiet tension. She traced the history of subtle manipulations she had overlooked, the small nudges and suggestions from Vanessa that had shifted Michael's attention. She allowed herself a measured exhale, keeping her expression calm and composed, observing without revealing her awareness. Eleanor noted the way Vanessa's eyes lingered slightly longer than necessary on Michael when she spoke, the careful modulation in her tone, the poised posture that commanded attention without overt assertion. Eleanor traced each of these details in her mind, understanding the quiet orchestration of influence. She observed the polished oak table reflecting the fading sunlight, the family photographs lining the mantel now seeming to witness the silent tension. She recalled moments from the past where trust and attention had been mutual, and contrasted them with the present, where subtle persuasion and calculated deference were at play. Eleanor sipped her tea slowly, the warmth steadying her as she absorbed each nuance. She considered the upcoming events and gatherings, the minor decisions and discussions that Vanessa had been shaping. Eleanor prepared herself mentally to navigate these waters with patience and strategic awareness. She remained poised, a calm center in a room where influence and allegiance shifted with subtle precision, the quiet hum of the refrigerator and the soft ticking of the wall clock providing a rhythm that marked the slow passage of time. Eleanor adjusted her posture slightly, her fingers tracing the stitching of her armchair, a grounding gesture as her mind catalogued and analyzed She noted the way Michael's expression softened for an instant when Vanessa spoke, an almost imperceptible sign of internal conflict. Eleanor held her gaze steady, maintaining composure, readying herself for the careful responses she would need to ensure her perspective and presence remained recognized. She considered each movement, each word exchanged, filing them away in her memory with precision. The late afternoon light deepening, shadows stretching across the room. Eleanor's calm and attentive demeanor contrasted sharply with the subtle manipulations unfolding around her. She allowed herself a small, controlled exhale, grounding herself in awareness, observation, and the quiet power of presence. Fully aware, fully attentive, Eleanor's afternoon continued in this balance of quiet observation and thoughtful calculation, the warmth of sunlight and tea grounding her, her eyes and mind capturing every detail, every nuance, every fleeting expression that revealed the underlying currents of intention and influence. Each second measured, each gesture noted, Eleanor remaining poised and present, a silent witness to the unfolding dynamics of her family. The golden light of early evening settled into the Bennett living room. Eleanor Bennett sitting upright in her armchair, the warmth from the fading sun reflecting gently on the polished surfaces of the coffee table and the hardwood floor. She watched Michael and Vanessa move with practiced familiarity, the subtle shifts in their body language now clear to her after hours of observation. Eleanor's attention traced every small gesture, every tilt of the head, the brief exchanges of glances, cataloging the power dynamics at play. She remembered the many afternoons spent discussing household plans, family celebrations, and shared responsibilities, contrasted now with Michael quietly accepting Vanessa's opinions without question. Eleanor's fingers tapped lightly against the armrest, a rhythmic, grounding motion, allowing her to maintain focus and composure. She noted the slight hesitation in Michael's responses, the brief pause when a suggestion from Vanessa seemed to align perfectly with her own prior recommendations. Eleanor stored this silently, understanding the subtle orchestration. She reflected on the meals prepared and conversations held in this room, the way laughter once echoed from the walls now replaced by quiet tension, the soft hum of the refrigerator and the faint click of the thermostat providing a steady rhythm. Eleanor's eyes shifted to the photographs lining the walls, memories of holidays, birthdays, and shared vacations now seeming to highlight the contrast between past unity and present manipulation. She observed Vanessa leaning slightly closer to Michael when discussing upcoming plans, the gentle emphasis in her voice, the controlled pacing of her words. Eleanor cataloged these cues meticulously, aware that observation itself held power. She sipped her tea, letting the warmth ground her as she considered the long-term patterns that had led to this moment. Eleanor thought back to prior interactions where subtle guidance and careful conversation had been overlooked or dismissed, now understanding how those small threads had contributed to the present dynamic. She allowed her gaze to rest briefly on the window where the last rays of sunlight illuminated the dust motes drifting lazily through the air. Eleanor's mind sharpened with clarity, patience guiding her every thought, every nuance committed to memory. She noted the faintest shift in Michael's posture when Vanessa suggested a minor adjustment to their family schedule, an almost imperceptible acknowledgement of influence. Eleanor's composed exterior betrayed none of the careful calculations running through her mind, each observation a piece of a puzzle she was quietly assembling, the late afternoon light casting long shadows that deepened the contours of the room. Eleanor maintained her stillness, a deliberate contrast to the subtle tension unfolding around her. She allowed a slow, controlled breath, the teacup resting gently on the table beside her, its warmth grounding her as she reviewed each gesture, each glance, each carefully chosen word exchanged between Michael and Vanessa. Eleanor considered the days and weeks ahead, the minor discussions and decisions that would continue to shape the household. She prepared mentally, not for confrontation but for careful, measured awareness, the ticking of the clock marking each second as she cataloged details with precision. Eleanor's quiet presence a central anchor, a poised observer in a room where allegiance and influence subtly shifted, every nuance accounted for, every signal noted. As the day progressed into evening, Eleanor remained steady, attentive, and fully aware, the soft fading light and the quiet sounds of the house accompanying her vigilant observation, ensuring that she would not be caught unaware. The warmth of the tea, the familiar scent of flowers, and the comforting weight of the armchair providing a calm counterpoint to the intricate dynamics unfolding before her. The evening shadows lengthened across the Bennett living room, Eleanor Bennett remaining seated in her armchair, the fabric cool beneath her palms as she traced the subtle patterns of the upholstery, the soft glow from the table lamp casting a warm light over the photographs lining the mantel, memories of past holidays and family gatherings now tinged with awareness and caution. She observed Michael moving between the kitchen and the living room with Vanessa, their conversation light on the surface yet carrying the invisible weight of unspoken influences. Eleanor noted the brief hesitation in Michael's voice when Vanessa mentioned a minor change to the household schedule, the way he tilted his head slightly, an almost imperceptible sign of internal conflict. Eleanor catalogued every nuance with precision, understanding that influence often operated in the smallest gestures. She reflected on the many afternoons spent guiding and advising Michael, the trust once freely given now filtered through layers of external persuasion. Eleanor's breathing remained steady, each inhalation and exhalation deliberate, grounding her as she continued to observe. She sipped her tea slowly, appreciating the warmth as it settled through her chest, the subtle aromas of vanilla and brewed coffee mingling in the air. Eleanor's gaze drifted to the window, the last traces of daylight illuminating the hardwood floor, highlighting every shadow and crease. She watched Vanessa lean slightly toward Michael when discussing upcoming family obligations, the tilt of her head, the carefully modulated tone of her voice. Eleanor's mind stored each signal, cataloging the power dynamics without revealing awareness. The room quiet except for the faint ticking of the wall clock and the distant hum of a car passing outside. Eleanor allowed herself to consider the long-term patterns, the small adjustments and suggestions Vanessa had made that cumulatively shifted Michael's attentions. She maintained a composed exterior, letting calmness mask the precise observation running through her mind. Eleanor noted the slight flicker of doubt crossing Michael's face when Vanessa emphasized a point, a fleeting expression she recognized from years past as the momentary conflict between awareness and acquiescence. Eleanor's thoughts connected each microreaction, each gesture, each subtle inflection into a coherent understanding of the household dynamics. She allowed the soft glow of the lamp to warm her hands, feeling the smooth surface of the teacup grounding her, each sip deliberate, a pause to maintain clarity. Eleanor reflected on past gatherings where her presence had been central, her input valued and considered, and contrasted them with the present, where subtle persuasion and careful maneuvering now shaped the interactions. She felt neither anger nor resentment, only focused awareness, the careful watchfulness of someone who had seen patterns emerge and understood their implications. Eleanor shifted slightly, adjusting her posture to reinforce composure, the warmth of the chair supporting her, her eyes and mind fully attentive, every glance and gesture observed, every word weighed for nuance and intent, the quiet of the evening allowing her to notice even the smallest details. Eleanor's presence a silent assertion, a calm and poised center in the unfolding choreography of influence, the subtle movement of light across the room marking the slow progression of time. She allowed her thoughts to settle into strategy, cataloging interactions, noting alliances, and observing the subtleties of sway and persuasion. Eleanor sipped the last of her tea, steady and deliberate, letting the warmth accompany the clarity in her mind. The room remained quiet on the surface, ordinary sounds punctuating the tension, Eleanor's attention never wavering, fully aware, fully present, and prepared for the careful steps that would follow as the evening continued to unfold in subtle shifts and delicate observation. The evening deepened into twilight, the soft amber glow from the living room lamp spilling across the polished hardwood floor. Eleanor Bennett sat upright in her armchair, her posture deliberate, hands folded gently on her lap as she observed the subtle interplay between Michael and Vanessa, their movements precise, their conversation measured. Eleanor noted the slight hesitation in Michael's tone when Vanessa suggested adjustments to the family calendar, the faintest sign of internal conflict that went unnoticed by anyone else. She cataloged each detail, every glance, every nuance of expression, her mind weaving the threads of subtle manipulation into a clear pattern. Eleanor's eyes moved across the room, landing on the mantel adorned with photographs of past family vacations, birthdays, and celebrations. the images, now seeming to echo the contrast between the warmth of shared moments and the quiet tensions of the present. The soft hum of the refrigerator and the gentle ticking of the clock accentuated the calm, allowing Eleanor to focus. She traced the faint lines of light cast by the lamp across the room, noting the shadows that fell across the table where Michael and Vanessa were discussing minor household matters. Eleanor's awareness sharpened, each word and gesture catalogued, the rhythm of ordinary domestic sounds providing a backdrop to her meticulous observation. She recalled past afternoons filled with laughter and easy conversation, where decisions had been made collaboratively, and contrasted them with the subtle orchestration she now observed. Eleanor sipped her tea slowly, allowing the warmth to steady her, grounding her in clarity, her gaze following Vanessa's movements, the controlled tilt of her head, the emphasis in her voice, and the gentle positioning near Michael as if to guide his focus. Eleanor absorbed it all silently, understanding that patience and awareness were her most powerful tools. She noted the momentary flicker in Michael's expression when Vanessa's tone carried subtle insistence, a small deviation that revealed the tension between awareness and habitual deference. Eleanor catalogued it, ready to interpret its significance later. She allowed herself to breathe slowly, a deliberate act to maintain calm and control, the room's ambient sounds and the soft glow of the lamp creating a cocoon of clarity in which she could observe without disruption. Eleanor considered the weeks and months leading to this evening, how small adjustments, gentle nudges, and seemingly innocuous suggestions had gradually influenced interactions and expectations. She kept her expression neutral, a composed observer in a room filled with undercurrents of influence. Every movement, glance, and inflection registered in her mind, forming a comprehensive understanding of the delicate balance of attention, allegiance, and subtle persuasion. Eleanor's posture remained steady, the warmth from the teacup grounding her, each sip deliberate as she prepared mentally for the unfolding moments. The light fading gradually, shadows lengthening across the living room, Eleanor remained poised, attentive, fully aware of every detail and nuance, a calm presence amidst the quiet. Orchestration, cataloging the evening's dynamics with patience and precision, ready to navigate the interactions with subtle insight and controlled strategy. The atmosphere tranquil on the surface yet layered with intricate currents of influence. Eleanor fully present, observing, analyzing, and understanding the subtleties of family dynamics as twilight deepened into night. The night had settled fully over the Bennett household, the living room bathed in the soft, warm glow of the lamp. Eleanor Bennett remained seated in her armchair, her posture poised and composed, the teacup resting lightly in her hands, the faint scent of brewed coffee lingering in the air. She watched Michael and Vanessa move through the room, their voices calm and measured, every word chosen with intention. Eleanor's gaze followed the subtle shifts in body language, the brief glances, the careful placement of hands and gestures, cataloging each movement silently. She recalled the quiet afternoons spent discussing family plans. The ease with which Michael had once deferred to her judgment now contrasted sharply with the careful consideration he gave to Vanessa's suggestions. Eleanor allowed a slow, deliberate breath, letting the warmth of the tea ground her as she continued to observe. She noticed a fleeting hesitation in Michael's expression, as Vanessa mentioned a minor change to the upcoming holiday schedule, a subtle indication that he sensed something, yet remained compliant. Eleanor stored this awareness, understanding that patience and observation were her strongest tools. She traced the faint patterns of light across the polished hardwood floor, the shadows stretching from the furniture like silent witnesses to the unfolding dynamics. Eleanor's mind revisited memories of family gatherings where her presence had been central, the conversations, the laughter, and the shared decisions, now replaced with careful orchestration by Vanessa. Eleanor's eyes returned to the mantel lined with photographs of past holidays, birthdays, and vacations, each image now tinged with a sense of contrast between past ease and present subtle tension. She sipped her tea slowly, each swallow deliberate, grounding her in calm observation. Eleanor considered the long-term patterns of influence Vanessa had established, the small suggestions, the gentle nudges that had gradually shifted Michael's tension. Eleanor remained composed, her expression neutral, every muscle relaxed yet fully attentive. The the quiet ticking of the wall clock and the distant hum of traffic providing a backdrop to her focused awareness. She noted Vanessa leaning slightly closer to Michael as she spoke, the tilt of her head, the modulation of her voice, each detail recorded and analyzed in Eleanor's mind. She reflected on the strategic patience required. Understanding that observation without reaction could reveal far more than confrontation, the fading light from the lamp cast gentle shadows across Eleanor's face, highlighting the concentration in her eyes. She adjusted her posture slightly, the teacup warming her hands, each sip reinforcing her clarity and focus. Eleanor cataloged each exchange, each word, each microreaction, weaving them into a complete understanding of the subtle power dynamics at play. She allowed a controlled exhale, maintaining calm and composure as the evening deepened, the quiet hum of the household continuing around her. Eleanor's awareness sharp and precise, a poised observer in a room filled with shifting alliances and nuanced influence. Every gesture, every glance, every carefully chosen word carefully noted, understood, and retained. As the night stretched onward, Eleanor remained steady, fully present, quietly asserting her attention and awareness, prepared for the careful steps that would follow as the family dynamics continued to unfold in the delicate balance of evening observations, the soft glow of the lamp reflecting the careful watchfulness in her eyes. Eleanor fully attentive, poised, and aware, each second passing marked by subtle observation and deliberate calm.